So this is now the second series in our book discussion, or book club series, whatever you want to call it. So the last one we did Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and this time we're going to be doing Killing Floor by Lee Child. I realized that in the last one I didn't really ever introduce the other person I was talking to the entire time. I hope Antonio is going to forgive me. But so I think I should probably do it now, so at least people roughly know who the other person is. So, who are you? So this is Koen I'm looking at right now, Koen Frolichs, fellow PhD student in the same lab as me.
Correct.
Yeah, and I guess the format is the same as before. So, in this book club, it's basically we discuss long books, at least 500 pages long. And these are usually books that I've wanted to read for a while, but somehow never got around to doing. And as last time, so, I don't know anything really about literature other than that I read a lot. So I can't have my guest know too much either. So I
That's great.
Koen would be the perfect person to talk to, someone who also reads and doesn't know anything about literature.
This is why I was chosen.
Yeah, this didn't I tell you?
Oh, shit. Okay.
No, but it's as I said earlier, it's just to set expectations. Where we didn't study literature or anything. We did people who read a fair bit, and are now going to read a long book together. And for some reason, we think it's a good idea to talk about it and then publicize or make public that recording because
yes,
maybe this is what people want. I don't know.
Slightly narcissistic, but it's something.
Yeah, I mean, you have to live up your narcissism somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I do it via talking to people and then uploading it so then no one listens to the recording. That's basically my plan. Yeah. So also in this series, we also assume that the reader is reading the book also. This is not the kind of thing where we just explain or retell everything that's happening. It's more that we've read usually around 100 pages. Today, this is then the first 7 chapters of Killing Floor, not Killing Time. And so, if you haven't read the first 7 chapters, then why are you listening to this? Please go back and read the first 7 chapters, and then you can rejoin us. Otherwise, there's going to be lots of spoilers, basically, because we're going to just be talking about everything. So if you haven't read it, have fun reading the first 7 chapters. And if you have read it, then I guess we can start.
Sure.
So as with...
Should we maybe say it's the first one? We chose the first Jack Reacher book. Yeah,
maybe why we chose this book to read is... So I've been, I don't know, a few years ago or something, I did the classic thing of being at a train station and picking up some random book. It happened to be one of the Jack Reacher books. I kind of liked it. And then since then, every half year or so, I probably read another one every half year or so. But I've never read the first one. I guess I only pick those up when I'm basically at a train station or something. And I guess they have the new ones.
Yeah.
So that's why I've read not actually the newest ones, but like a few of the recent ones. But I've
how
never...
many? How many have you read?
Oh, how many have I read? I think... So I read... Actually, the first one I read was a collection of short stories, which I didn't know was unusual because they're all novels apart from this one book, but that's the one I read first. And then I think two or three, can't remember.
Okay. So you have some idea.
Yeah, I've read some. It happens to be, I think they were actually all consecutive. But yeah, so in this series, there's I don't know how many there are, 20, 30, something like that.
Quite a few.
And they started in the early 90s, and Lee Child has been publishing one a year since then. So yeah, I've always been curious what the first one was like, because Lee Child was also not a writer when he wrote this. He was a recently fired TV producer or something like that, who, as far as I know, had never really written any fiction until then. So I'm just curious how his writing changed, or whether it changed. And yes, I just wanted to read the first one, basically.
Makes sense, yeah.
And Koen, another reason, of course, why you're a guest here is, or why you're the co-host or whatever, is that you started reading one of the books and then didn't want to finish it. So I think that's another good prerequisite.
That is a good one, yeah. Yeah, I guess it might be good to know, like we kind of share books in the lab. Everyone, who has fun books shares them and the rest reads them, kind of. I mean, that's what we try. Ben has been the major.
I was about to say, it's mainly me giving books.
Yes, yeah. And the rest using your goodwill.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah, so I mean, what was the book? It was one of the latest ones, right?
Yeah, I think it was one of the better ones. Although what was it called? Past tense, I think.
Past tense, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit. I think that one's a bit slow because you kind of, you're waiting from like page 20 on for the culmination, and you kind of know what's going to happen. And I felt like it was slightly dragged out, but I thought that one was pretty good.
Okay.
And I think that one is also more representative of what the Reacher books are like, the ones that I've read now. Whereas this first one, I think, is a bit different in a few ways, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
So that's the book. That's you covered, Koen.
That's
anything
me.
else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a book that's more than 500 pages long. We're going to read around 100 pages a week.
Barely, right? How many is it? Yeah, 524. 525, yeah.
Yeah, just over, yeah. I'm going to read about 100 pages a week and then talk about it. Basically, whatever we found interesting, confusing, whatever.
Yeah. But it's going to be, we're going to try to keep it a little bit free flowing, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to have I'm going to read a summary of each chapter in a minute. Yeah. And after that, it's, pretty much whatever comes up. I mean, I think towards the end, I quite liked in the Crime and Punishment discussion, towards the end, having the last 5 minutes or so be, what do you think is going to happen next? What's going to happen to that person? A kind of bit of a guessing.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite nice. But yeah, apart from, basically you have like 5 minutes structured at the beginning, 5 minutes structured at the end, and everything else is just mayhem. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to be crazy within the limits of a book club.
Yeah.
Which limits the craziness substantially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do the 5 minutes at the beginning. Actually, I write down now 2-3 sentences per chapter because in the beginning of Crime and Punishment, I thought I'd just freestyle it, which led to an 8-minute summary of of 100 pages. So now I write them down because it's surprisingly difficult to not start waffling. At least
I
for
couldn't
me.
do it. Yeah.
Anyway, so here's a summary. Chapter 1. Reacher, soaking wet from a long walk, having just arrived from out of state, is eating in a diner when 4 policemen arrest him for murder, which he says he did not commit. Chapter 2. Reacher is interrogated about the last 24 hours and his previous life. Reacher says he grew up in the army, worked for the army, and is now out of work, traveling at random. He also says in the last day he took a bus from Florida to Georgia and then walked the last 40 miles. The police chief comes around as a witness and disagrees with Reacher, saying Reacher was around the crime scene, not getting onto a bus in Tampa. Chapter 3. Reacher is interviewed by 2 policemen who put him under some pressure, but Reacher finds the fault in their reasoning and exposes their theory as weak. Reacher thinks the murder was committed by 3 people. A phone number was found in the victim's shoe with the word pluribus written underneath, I can't remember. And that phone number... I can't read my handwriting. That phone number is traced to a local man called Paul Hubble. Chapter 4. Hubble, a rich banker, is brought into the police station. He confesses to the murder after hearing the word pluribus and knows facts about the murder, but he couldn't have been at the crime scene at the time of the murder. One of the police officers drove him home from a party after the time of the murder. Chapter 5. Police Chief Morrison thinks that Hubble hired Reacher for the murder. Reacher and Hubble are brought to a jail for the weekend where they share a cell. Chapter 6. As unconvicted prisoners, Reacher and Hubble should be in holding cells. Instead, they're on the floor with lifetimers, i.e. people who are in prison for life. They get a visit from the Red Boys. Reacher headbutts one of them. Hubble asks Reacher for help because his family is being threatened to death if he tells anyone anything. Chapter 7. Reacher tells Hubble to keep his secret. The Aryan Brotherhood tries to kill Reacher and might have done so if the Red Boys didn't intervene. Reacher and Hubble are transferred to the proper floor 6, the holding cells. That was a weird last sentence, I'm sorry. Anyway.
Totally fine.
That's... Oh, thank you. thought you were going to be angry at me.
Yeah, I'll leave now. Sorry. I can't deal with this.
We need proper English sentences here.
Yeah.
So that was the first 7 chapters.
That was a good summary. I could follow along.
You have
also
to.
means I read the book.
Yeah, it's something that it's really cool sometimes. I had in Crime and Punishment when you have like some ridiculous plotline and you can say it in one sentence. It can often sound very funny when you just read it like in a very dry manner, like all the emotional stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Like in Crime and Punishment, there was like my favorite sentence summary of a chapter was something like, this one guy goes to bed, has 2 nightmares, walks around town, harasses this guy, does that, and then shoots himself in the face.
Great, yeah.
But there were like a few steps in between, so it's like... Anyway, that's another
Sounds
book.
like a great summary, yeah. Actually, can I start with a question to you?
Of course.
So I was wondering, now, do you read this book differently than you would normally because you know you're going to be talking about it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably... Yeah, that's one thing that's slightly not annoying, but like I do slightly lose the kind of naturalness of just reading it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, the basic thing is that I think the main difference is just that I have to write down what happens so I don't forget like obvious plot lines. I think sometimes I might or not even obvious plot lines, you'll get those, but like the minor plot lines that might become more important. For example, I noticed that I don't want to keep talking about the old one, but with Crime and Punishment, I noticed that in the beginning I kind of neglected a plot line. And then afterwards it came back and I was like, oh shit, I just don't really remember exactly what happened.
Should have.
So now I'm a bit more cautious of especially in my summary, getting most of the plot lines in there. I mean, for example, like one thing I forgot to write down here is now that Reacher fancies one of the police, the one policewoman. That's
Roscoe.
something that's going to come back. I forgot to mention that now. But
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's this trade-off, right? Where for most long books, I mean, this one is an easy book to read, but for most long books, I might not finish them otherwise. And now I know I'm going to finish it because we have this discussion. Sure. But then I do lose a bit of the kind of spontaneity of reading, whatever you want to call it.
The flow, yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of a don't forget this, write this down.
Yeah. You try to be a bit more attentive. I also try, because you don't want to be like the dumbass who's like, oh, I never saw that coming, right? In like episode 3.
Wait, who's Reacher?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's especially bad because I'm really bad with names. I just have in both like when it comes to actual people in real life and books, it just doesn't matter to me at all. So I just keep forgetting them.
Yeah.
I mean, I once had a book where there were literally 2 characters, and I halfway through I was like, "Who's this name? Who's this person?" I was like, "Oh, that's one of the 2 characters." I just completely forgot. So, I mean, if you read a Russian book like we did before, then you quickly learn that you have to.
Yeah.
But already here, there's already like 8 names or something, right? There's already quite a few people in here.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah. I've actually, now that we're talking, I'm thinking like, can I still the main characters, right? Can I still do it?
I've already forgotten the name of the who I don't exactly know what his title is, but the guy who put Reacher and Hobble on floor 3 at the end. The last chapter. Yes,
like the
I actually wrote it down for a separate question.
Adjunct director of the jail. You mean like
Spivey?
He's not like
Spivey. Yeah, I don't know. Spivey. Anyway, that guy. Yeah, I've forgotten his name, and that's kind of how the last chapter ends, right? So
true, yeah, because he seems to be like, he seems to be a big player, right? Because he put them, but seems like purposely on the wrong floor. I mean, maybe we shouldn't start with the last chapter.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I agree. I think, this is probably going to be like a whole thing, right? That there's this police corruption at various different institutions here is kind of what's leading Reach into this situation.
Yeah. Is there usually a moral attached to Jack Reacher, or is it just like, Jack Reacher is a badass?
I think that is the moral. No, I mean, okay. So here's the thing, right? So Jack Reacher never attacks innocent people or anything like that. He always, okay. I mean, basically his whole thing is he used to be in the military and like learned all these crazy fighting skills, and is basically the person on Earth you want to fuck with least.
Yeah.
And but he never uses that to just bully people or anything. He's not a bully.
Sure.
He here's the thing, right? He's probably a sadistic psychopath because he. No. I mean, there's some books where. So here in this one, he only defends himself, right? I mean, he describes it very viscerally and it's very brutal, but he defends himself. There's others where there's like one where he basically beats someone he was attacking him, like he defended himself, and then he like kicked him in the face like really hard just before he was leaving. The kind of thing where like that was not necessary.
Unnecessary. Yeah.
And he does that a bit. Like I think he's sometimes unnecessarily brutal, but I don't think he ever attacks first unless he kind of thinks the other person's going to attack him.
Yeah, sure. If he knows, like it's like it happens in prison, right? Where what are they called? The Rat Boys.
Yeah.
Which is such a lovely generic gang name.
Yeah.
But that's the 90s for you, I think. He's like, he knows like these 5 guys are going to mess with him. So he'll just like headbutt the shit out of this big guy.
3-2 headbutt. Yeah. No, so he will do that, but I don't remember in the books I've read him ever even coming close to exerting violence to someone who didn't who's either about to exert it on him or who's putting some sort of physical or whatever pressure on someone else.
Sure.
So that in a way that is probably the moral, that he's kind of this a violent Robin Hood. I guess it's not about money, but standing up for those who can't defend themselves.
For the weak, yeah.
But that's pretty much it. And by a guy who really also enjoys doing that.
Yeah. I mean, he left the military, but like, or not, I guess he still likes that kind of stuff, the more violence-y.
So that's like one thing I meant, one thing I want to talk about slightly, the differences I've already seen here to other Jack Reacher books. And, one is that he's described as a tall guy here, but in the other ones, he's always described as like 6'5" or something. It's like, it's much more specific. And so basically Jack Reacher is, he's almost 2 meters tall, weighs like 10 kilograms, 120 kilograms or something, with like no fat. And has like all the fighting skills in the world, right? Well, I think like more in terms of like street fighting in particular.
Yeah.
He knows to just headbutt someone first.
Yeah. I mean, he's there to win, right? Like he's not in a cage with like a referee or whatever. He's in a street fight. Yeah,
exactly. He's there to just destroy the other person if necessary, and sometimes if not exactly necessary. But
then he just looked at him in a weird way.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I haven't... Like, one thing that I found interesting here in this book, relative to the others I read, is that this is... Well, actually, maybe for you, like, how does it... let's see if I can ask a kind of directed question that doesn't then reveal what I want you... Like, what I think. I mean, I'm kind of interested in, like, how you perceive him as a person in this book. As someone who hasn't really read much of the others.
Sure. I mean, I have to admit, I did watch one. There's a Jack Reacher movie, I think. It's with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, where everyone hates that Tom Cruise face.
Because it's Tom Cruise, right? He's like a poor guy, like talented born.
Just about that. There's I watched after I read like 2 or 3 of the Reacher books, I watched a few interviews with the author Lee Child, just about this. And I think a lot of the interviews were in recent years when the film's already come out, and like not half the questions, but a high proportion of questions were like, why is Tom Cruise playing this guy? And he defended himself every time, and his answers basically, Tom Cruise is not physically what Jack Reacher is.
Sure.
But then again, no actors. Like, find me one actor who's a good actor, who's, almost 2 meters tall and completely ripped and can fight.
Sure.
Like, there are none, basically, and those who say they are usually shorter. It seems like he said like he met quite a lot of actors, and apparently they often pretend they're taller than they are. So he said like, there are no actors like that, so I just look for someone with the right mentality. But it is fun to me that just no one likes Tom Cruise play Jack Reacher. And I think actually they're making a new one with a different actor, if I remember correctly.
It could be, I don't know.
Anyway, I guess you've seen the film. I actually haven't seen any of the films, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I mean, and I think it's probably quite like... He probably acts it out pretty well, right? It's just like, okay, so my perception of Jack Reacher is there's this super, logical, straightforward guy. He always sees through everyone's bullshit, sees through life's bullshit, and just knows how to deal with it, but doesn't want to deal with it. Like kind of, right? He's a loner, doesn't want to deal with people, but he's got too much of a, like what would you say, like moral compass to like just let stuff happen. Like now it happens to him. In the other book I read like the first like 100 pages or something. Like, he's gonna probably help out like some other people who get into trouble, right? And he could just walk away. He's a loner. Like he's got, there's no need for him to like step in, kind of, right? But he does anyways because he's got like he's still a good guy. Like he had spots people, probably like puts him in the hospital for like months, but he's a good guy. I think that's kind of, it's like kind of this guy. That's why it's written, right? It's just like kind of a guy at least guy kind of wants to be, maybe. Right? You just want to be like this badass, like you can beat up 5 guys. Yeah, you can deal with situations. Yeah. Like
anything, basically.
I mean, let's be honest. If a cop walks in, even not pointing his gun at me, I panic a little bit, right? It's like, oh, fuck, what does he want from me, right? Yeah. He just sits there and he's like, he's got his shotgun pointed a little too high, right? Like, I wish I could be that cool. Like, even like in lesser situations, I think Jack Reacher is just like, he's this stereotype of like, kind of the guy everyone kind of, would like to be, at least in certain situations.
Yeah, what I like about the way he's written is that he is like this fantasy, right? But he's the intelligent version of the fantasy, because he's not just a guy who's completely arrogant and cocky and thinks he can deal with everything. Like he actually can, and he can do it because he has like decades of training.
Sure.
Or like 15 years, 20 years of training, right? Like he's not the guy who just walks around pretending he can fight anyone. He actually like learned how to fight. Like he put 2 decades or whatever of training into this, and that's why he can do it.
Yeah.
He's not just... Yeah, I mean, of course, his like height and that kind of stuff is in part something he didn't do, but and if he was, 1.65 m, not 1.95 m, then I'm sure these books would play out a bit differently. But
yeah,
I like that he has, even though he plays this fantasy role, it's a kind of realistic fantasy in that sense. That, if you had a guy who went through 20 years of military training and was almost 2 meters tall, he could probably that's probably what he would more or less be like.
Sure. Yeah. And like your amygdala has been dumbed down, so like it doesn't respond to most stress reactions anymore.
Also, you've seen the situations play out. That's kind of what I mean, right? You're kind of if you've been, I don't exactly know what his backstory is, but if you've been in lots of combat situations, you've seen this stuff before. You know roughly what's going to happen. He can. That's the thing. Like he can kind of guess what the people are going to do. But not like on a kind of psychic, I'm a mind reader, but just a kind of like he's been there before.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he does like another thing that he does is like when he's like in this interrogation room with this, what do they call him, superintendent or something? This black cop who came from Boston.
He was the chief detective or whatever, even though he's the only one or something like that.
AKA the only one. Yeah. Like at the end, he kind of like jabs at him by saying like, by kind of like telling him his past 20 years, right? You studied at Harvard, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of those like Sherlock Holmesy things that's like, it's still on the level of, it's still within possible, right? That you kind of like guess this stuff, you know? So that's kind of cool. It's like this awareness, like this kind of born type of awareness that you can still believe is possible for a trained
Interestingly,
human.
That's one thing I wanted to point out is that's something that is not in any of the later Reacher books.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
At least not to this extent. Of the ones I've read, right? I've only read like 4 or something.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he has this thing of like guessing what people are like. But it's quite different. So I don't know. I can't remember whether there is maybe something like this, but there's maybe 2 things I can comment on. The first thing is that when I read that, I thought like, that's something that Lee Child has moved away from. It just seemed too much like the Sherlock Holmes thing and not really what Reacher would do. Because also he talks way more in this book than in others.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's, this whole speech he had, like where he said, like, with that guy, like you did this, then you did that, and you did that. He doesn't really do that. Now he might think something about someone. Yeah. And then he punches them. That's basically what happens. No, but like, so one example is like once when I guess the fighting scene is a bit different, but when he'd eye people and like try and figure out what they were like. And, in the past tense, for example, in that book, there's like one scene where I think 3 people move towards him and he's like, okay, this is going to be easy because these 3 are not approaching me properly. They clearly don't know how to fight. and then that kind of thing, right? But he doesn't go through this like Sherlock Holmes deductive kind of thing, and that's actually something that at least I haven't seen in any of the later books. Which I think makes sense also because it seems more realistic. Like this kind of this thing seems always slightly like, would that really happen? But
it's an educated gamble at best, right?
Exactly, and he does that a lot less in the later ones.
Okay.
But yeah, so like for me, one thing that stood out, as I said, is that he talks more in this one than in others. Although I should also say, like the other books I've read, so I think the Reacher books alternate between first and third person. I mean, not alternating, but they some are in first person, some are in third person.
Yeah.
And this one is obviously in first person, whereas all the others I've read were in third person. So that obviously changes things a bit.
Okay.
But he seems a lot more... In the later one, it seems like he's kind of dropped the smart ass stuff.
Sure.
And he just exists and kind of observes and acts. There's a lot less of this like trying to be smart here.
Got it. Okay. So do you think, I mean, does he age throughout the books? Do you know? Because it's been like 20 years now, at least in our universe.
I think it might be more like The Simpsons, where it's kind of like you have this setting and the past, and sometimes you have stuff about the past, but in general, it's just like a recurring day, more or less, almost. Like,
got it.
Or not day, but So I don't know. I mean, in the few I've read, I don't recall. Well, the problem is I haven't read like all the ones that were before, so I don't know whether he's referencing something that happened before. But as far as I can tell, it's usually he references something from his military past or something, but not.
But that's it.
Yeah, as far as I remember.
Okay.
So I don't. There have been like 20 or 30 books, but a lot of these books take place over the course of like 2 weeks or whatever. So it is plausible that
it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I think in this one it says it's mid-30s or something, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And then you could still be doing that 10 years later. That would probably still work. Yeah,
and you could still be physically on
exactly.
peak. Yeah.
So, but I don't know whether he ages.
Okay.
So probably not. Then I imagine.
Probably.
I mean, I haven't read a Reacher where he's like 80 years old and on a like scooter or something, trying to beat up people, which is way too weak. Just hitting people with his cane. Like,
well, you could probably still find like a weak point in their body and like break it viciously.
Yeah, or at least he would try. Yeah, it's weird, like this kind of person, how he's this kind of guy, but that kind of guy can't exist like that forever, right? He has to have that kind of physical body to do that, right? If he's already 60, I mean, a lot of that you can do with knowing how to fight, knowing situations, that kind of stuff. But ultimately, he wins a lot of fights just because he's big and stronger.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's also just like probability, right? If you get a gun pointed at you every couple of weeks, it's going to go wrong at some point, right? It's not you who decides that it's, you can act all good, but a person like his finger can slip and just shoot you through the head. So, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, actually, one thing I wanted to mention at the beginning that I forgot is that whilst reading this book, I'm also reading this book about how Lee Child writes Reacher books. So there's this, I've forgotten the name now, but I'll put it in the description. There's this book where basically a guy says like to Lee Child, hey, can I just watch you write a Reacher book? Well, they knew each other before, so it wasn't completely random. But so they do that, and he also explains a bit of the I've read like the beginning now, the first few chapters, and he explains a bit of the background of Reacher and that kind of stuff. And apparently, Lee Child did consider killing Reacher, killing him off. But I think, or basically like ending the series, that kind of thing. Like either by killing him or by saying he kind of just says like, this seems like a nice place, I'll stay here.
Got it. Yeah.
And I think I can't remember exactly why, but he decided against it. And, now his brother took over the series, which is the most random thing. But I think like he wrote like the last few with his brother together or something, and now his brother's taking over completely. So I think he's just this like timeless figure who doesn't age.
Keep going. Yeah. I mean, I think it can happen, right? I mean, it's just, I feel like these Reacher books are just entertainment, right? I don't mean it in any negative way, but that's just it, right? You just read him, on the beach or whatever, or at home, like for a week, and it's just, nice entertainment, makes you feel good, You can
As
like
a big guy.
imagine you're a badass for a week, not like crying in jail.
Yeah.
Like
No, I mean, no, it's definitely. I mean, this is complete. Like this is, I think, traditional classical pulp fiction, right? There's no, as you said, like there's no real moral or anything. It's just there's this guy who does this thing, and he does it over and over again every book,
and he does it very well.
Yeah, and it's always the same plot line. Pretty not. I mean, not the same plot line, but I mean, it's a classic kind of entertainment story where there's a problem at the beginning. He has to fight his way through several steps, and then in the end, he wins. The problem solved, and so far in all the books, I think in all of the books I've read, he also gets the goal. Sometimes that happens earlier than later, but I think so far it's always happened in the novels that I've read. And it looks like this one is going to be the same.
He's going to get Roscoe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a very subtle hints there.
I love how he described like a first thing. She's taking his fingerprints, right? So they're in this room, in this interrogation room, and she's taking his fingerprints, and it's like, yeah, blah, blah. And like she has like this tight-fitting blue shirt, like the typical cop stuff. Blouse. Yeah, blouse, yeah. And then he's like, and then when she moves forward, her boobs press on the table. Yeah. And it's like, that's a high table or a short woman. But like, the fact that he's... that he's describing that kind of makes it, kind of...
exactly.
And then she winks at him, gives him coffee, everything.
This is one thing, that scene in particular was one where I realized, like, okay, Child really got better over time as a writer, because that's just too on the nose. I mean, that's just laughable, just how, like, clumsily written it was. But that's the kind of stuff that in the later books is much more elegantly and smoothly done. It's not like she winked at me and that kind of stuff. Like, who the fuck winks at a guy who's just been arrested? Like, that's not how anything happens. And there's a lot of like, not only like about this kind of romance, let's call it romance, this kind of romance scene or plot line, but also the other stuff where he's just gotten a lot smoother at doing this stuff over
like more refined.
Yeah, you can really tell that this is like the first time he did this. I mean, this is what's really interesting to me, is that there's a lot of points where you go like, I can see how the later books are already in here, but it's not done quite as well.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's really hard to describe. Like there's, Reacher is, a complete meme as a person. Yeah. So, and this kind of like him being tough and not saying anything and beating people up. Over in the later books, it's done in a kind of often funnier way. I find like with a bit of a smile, or like not Reacher doing it, but like it's done in a I don't know how to describe it properly. I don't know whether it's just kind of the writer's confidence in and being able to build on this character you already built, rather than here you being an unknown writer writing a first story for the first time. But I think maybe because you can reference stuff, you can kind of make it a bit neat and nicer later.
Sure. I mean, people already know Jack Reacher, right? I mean, even if you've never read a book, you kind of know.
I didn't
just from
actually.
Pop culture.
I'd never heard of him until like 3 years ago or something.
I think my dad might have read a couple, so I might have known from that. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought he was kind of like a pop figure anyways, like known, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'd also never heard of the films really. So like that entire thing passed me by completely.
Okay.
I mean, I do read these kind of books, how should we say, regularly, but not super frequently. 3-4 like this a year or something. And, but somehow there's just so many series read, and this one just passed me by for some reason.
I mean, you have like the Bourne series as well, stuff like that. Right?
There's so much. And
it's the same stereotypical guy who, there's always some slight differences, but it's always kind of this badass guy who
saves the day. Yeah.
Saves the day, gets the girl.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read one like this though, so this is the thing, like this is still one where he's kind of a bit of a smartass and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. In the later ones, I feel like he is a bit more. He is quite different from other series I've read.
Okay.
But anyway, actually, shall we talk a bit more about the actual first 7 chapters? I realized because we're doing an hour per recording, and we're 40 minutes in now, so we've got 20 minutes to actually discuss. But I mean, like the thing is also like in the beginning, I meant I was pretty sure we were going to talk a bit more about these kind of things, because this is the thing that I'm really paying attention to, and this is why I wanted to read it, because I wanted to read the first one, having read some of the later ones.
I mean, it's good also to know kind of what we're in for, right? Or like what we want out of this, or what we expect, kind of.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for example, there's like some things that are already in there. Like he always drinks lots of coffee. Like he really likes coffee. He always eats like eggs for breakfast. He always walks long distances. Like those things are already all in the book. But later on, they're kind of, I don't know, not tongue in cheek, but it's kind of, you just recognize like, oh, that guy is doing that thing again, right?
Yeah. He's got his routines. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing I found, so this is actually one thing about this part that is a bit more general, but then goes a bit more into the plot, is that, and that's different to the others I've read, is that he's much more vulnerable in this one than in the other books I've read, because all the other ones I've read, he's literally just roaming around the US, and then he sees someone either do something wrong or about to do something wrong, and he tries to intervene.
Got it.
He intervenes, he doesn't just try, he succeeds. But in this one, this is the first time where, he's in prison. He can't do anything. He's completely vulnerable to the conditions around him. Like if the police guard says, you stay on floor 3, that's what happens, right? Yeah. So this is the funny thing. Like he seems to me a lot more vulnerable in this one than in others. He also sometimes says that he said, like, I was anxious or nervous or something at some point early on. I've never had anything like that in any of the previous books. He's much more about, like, calculating probabilities and that kind of stuff. But here's the first time when he said something like, I think it was something like he realized that the main cop wanted him in prison, or, like, wanted him. And he realized, like, this is, I can't do anything here. Yeah. He's very limited in his actions. And so that's one thing that, there's a huge difference here, is that he's, for the first time that I've read, the person who's vulnerable and who kind of needs helping often.
Sure.
Whereas otherwise, he's the guy helping other people.
Sure. Okay. And that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, but then the way he deals with it, right? He just like stays calm, tries to figure it out, right? Like he first gets into the holding cell in like the police station, and he just tries to, I actually thought that was cool how he's like, he tries to read the newspaper to pass the time, but he can't really because he's so, stuck in the situation. I thought that was really cool because it makes him kind of human, right? Yeah,
and you don't kind of have that in the later ones almost. Or maybe just because it's a third-person perspective, and Lee Child never like describes emotions from a third-person perspective. He's more about describing action or what happens. Maybe it's the kind of thing you kind of get a hint of, but it's not as explicit.
Sure. Okay, so that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so that it was kind of funny for me, like knowing I was going to say he's vulnerable in this one after he beat like up several people.
Yeah. It's like vulnerable in like, he's like, oh shit, I have to deal with stuff, and then he does. Yeah,
but still, the police thing is something he can't deal with. I mean, that's the main difference here, is that in the physical confrontation, he still. I mean, I guess he still needed people to help him out at the end when there were 3 people against him or whatever. But
he doesn't even, right? Because they just take the blame. Yeah, like I think he beats up the Aryans still, like the Aryan Brotherhood.
That's one thing I was actually slightly confused by, because I thought he completely beat them up, but then I thought after that he said something like that the guys still kind of.
No, I think so. He beat them up, and then these 2. What are they called again? Red gangs came, and they were like
whatever.
Like this other gang. They came and they said like, dude, leave. Like we'll take the blame. Kind of like we'll like make it look like we beat up these 5 Aryans. Because you get credit in jail for that.
The Red Boys, I think, is the
Red Boys. That's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I thought so, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know either.
Actually, so there is one thing though I was thinking about. Now he isn't super vulnerable, right? Because even when he's initially jailed, he at some point he's like, when you take him out the second time and they don't even like put a gun on him anymore, he's like, these guys like underestimate me, kind of, right?
Of course, but
so he could have walked out there. He could have like kicked a guy in the neck or whatever and like walked out, but he knows it's better to like sit it out.
I mean, he's also in the middle of the woods, right? Like he's he might get somewhere. But he also, it's not,
sure.
it's one thing if you it's one thing if you are beaten up, or like if you're facing like 5 people and they beat you up or whatever, and they leave you on the side of the road. It's a different thing. That's a different thing to the police is after you, and in theory there's an entire country's apparatus behind them. Like if he kills a policeman, he's in trouble, right? He knows that.
Yeah.
Whereas
that's true.
he's killed other people like without thinking about it. So that's the slight difference. Like, yes, he could like get out of that situation, but not really the larger situation of him being accused of murder.
Yeah.
But no, of course, that's what I mean. Even when he's vulnerable, he's still kind of in control. I have a few questions about the plot, and I like the few questions I have already go to like they're kind of already slightly more towards what's going to happen next. I don't know whether you have anything else.
Not right away. I'm curious to hear what you've got, also because we got 10 minutes. So
yeah, so the questions I have are more about like kind of some of the mysteries that the first part threw up, and that not threw up. Can you say that? I don't know. I didn't mean puke. And that are going to be like the major plot points going forward. So, what do you think? What is pluribus? This word written on with the phone number of the lawyer.
Yeah. The phone that's hidden in that guy's boot, right? I mean, it must be some kind of criminal organization that everyone in this village is somehow related to.
You think it's like an organization? Okay, I thought it might be a code word or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you've read more Lee Child books. I don't know. I mean, what I find interesting.
No, I didn't get this from the others. I just somehow assumed when I read pluribus because it sounds. Yeah, it's either an organization or a code word, but you wouldn't write the organization in there, I feel like, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, what I find interesting is, right, on the back of the book, they have like, this little country or like city or town.
Oh, like
Margrave
had image, you mean?
No, on the back, like the back flap. Margrave has just had its first homicide in 30 years, right? Why do they need a completely new police station if they never have homicides, right? Because he really goes into detail about how new this police station is. Right?
Yeah.
Must have cost them.
That's an interesting. I didn't realize that at all. That's a good point.
They only have one detective. He's from outer town, right? So he probably like he's I don't know. Like it's probably like they try to like force him to not look. Don't look at that part of the town. I feel like it's all connected. This what do you call like the stereotypical bad police chief. It's probably part of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing, right? You have first the police chief who, I mean, in some part you can just say he has a clear suspect and it might be an easy case. So whatever, he's just going to get that guy just so he has like a cleared murder. But yeah, obviously something's really wrong because he doesn't even try to investigate. So we also have to say, we're assuming right now that Jack Reach is telling the truth.
That's true. Yeah.
I think it's fair to assume because... I'd imagine he's telling the truth. But yeah, assuming he's telling the truth, then the officer and the police chief never really tried to even investigate the whole thing, right? He just kind of said, like, "There's a guy. That's it. We've got our guy. Let's put him in prison." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just someone. And in a way, also Reach is the perfect guy for this, right? Because he has no family, no one who's going to stand up for him outside of jail or whatever. He's just a guy. He's a nameless, a homeless kind of guy. Yeah. Who is a perfect victim for police corruption or whatever, right?
True.
But so here's a question. So we don't know who committed the murder, but we know that Habu has something in the slightest to do with it, even if he just heard about it, right? Like he definitely did something or saw something or whatever. Yeah. And so here's my I don't know, it's a question or point, but it says that Habu is this like fancy banker or whatever who works like in the big city or whatever and lives there. Yeah. Sounds like some sort of corruption, right? Like that's an easy way for him to... He just bought the new house and everything. I mean, to be fair, if he has a good banking job, then you can definitely afford a nice house like in the middle of nowhere. But I'm wondering whether he has some sort of... He took money for something or laundered some money or something like that.
Yeah, probably like that. Because when he heard pluribus, that's when he flipped, kind of, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's when he immediately said, like, yeah, I did it.
Okay, I did it, yeah.
Yes, I wonder whether pluribus is maybe some sort of... Yeah, that's what I mean, like code word for... Or like the name they gave their criminal activity internally or whatever, something like that.
Sure.
I mean, if we want to be like... So pluribus is a Latin word, right? And, okay, let me just check so I don't get this wrong. So there is a famous... Oh, okay, I didn't realize it was this famous. So there is a famous saying called E pluribus unum. I thought that was just a saying, but it's actually the traditional motto of the United States. And appears on the Great Seal. Seal as in not the animal, but...
Disappointing.
Yeah, although there is an eagle underneath. Anyway, so, and it literally translates to one out of many. So pluribus means, in this case, just basically many. But that doesn't really help me.
No.
If it has supposed to have some sort of connection to a crime.
It has to be like some link, yeah.
But I don't know what it is, yeah. But then...
It's interesting.
So yeah, I don't know... So I don't know what it is. The meaning of it itself seems just kind of generic, I have to say. It's just a motto of the US and it means many, so it could be anything really.
Yeah, this could be woven into like any plotline basically still.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a few questions, right? One question is, who was the guy who was murdered? The man who has his face shot off and was then beaten after he was already dead. Yeah. I don't think is there any relevant information in there?
I don't think we have information on that yet, right?
Yeah, he only has the link to Hubble through the phone number.
And he was on some generic farm, right? Or was it like a warehouse?
I can't remember actually where it was found.
Okay, I think like outside of a warehouse, which is like, could also be anything still, right? Do you have like dope in the warehouse or whatever? Like laundered money? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why was the police chief there actually? Because he said he saw Jack Reacher there. Like he had.
No. He said he saw him at midnight. I think. Not at the time of the murder, but I think he said, if I remember correctly, he saw him at midnight.
Okay.
And then,
but he must have been at the scene of the murder then.
Right? Yeah. Well, he was a police chief. He can probably say he was doing his patrol, right? I mean, also he didn't see him. Like if we're trusting Reacher, then he didn't see him. Yeah. He was just making this up.
Lying bastard. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Let's see. I would then guess that. Yeah, drug trafficking doesn't sound too bad, both as a career and as a potential solution to this, what's happening in this book. But yeah, I'd imagine that the financier has something to do with the financial side of maybe a drug deal or something. And then, I don't know, the police, let's speculate here. The police just turned a blind eye or something because they were being financed. They were getting money from it or something. Yeah. And then... But somehow this guy was still murdered, though, right? And that's the big question: why was he murdered? That's the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't know enough about him, right?
Yeah,
like,
we have nothing
was he like an undercover cop or whatever? You know?
I don't know.
Just a generic bad guy.
Just a random guy who has no face anymore.
Yes, and he got like severely beaten after his death, right? I don't know. I mean, that could be interesting. That to me seemed someone really disliked him.
But that to me seemed like more like the warning to other people to keep quiet, right? Like, we're not only going to kill you, we're going to, like they said, like with his children, like we're going to, what did they say? Like, we're going to...
things after you're dead that you can't even imagine or something like that.
You won't even know about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's kind of just we're not joking. Yeah, we're very serious about this.
It's real intimidation, yeah. It's not just the red boys, it's real.
Yeah, and then there's this theory with the 3 people. That's another...
That he said, right? So there must have been 3 people.
He's correct. Yeah. If there were 3 people, one of them was a policeman. Who knows?
Well, yeah. And, actually, didn't the what's his face? The policeman drove the banker home with his wife. That's 3 people. His wife might be super aggressive.
Yeah, and they just need someone to drive, right? Yeah. You need one.
And sorry to interrupt, but there's this, the guy who put Reacher and the Hubble on the wrong floor.
Yeah, that's the other guy I was
something to do with
wondering
as well.
about. Yeah, exactly. That guy. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe. So that wasn't right. So here I could imagine it's just they let's say they know who murdered the person and it was one of them or something like that, or someone who they don't want to anger and they want to please. Then Reacher is the easy target for murderer, and if he's killed, then whatever, they can just say it was him and he can't defend himself, right? Because he's dead. So I think that might have been that they basically said, like, get rid of this guy. He's our murderer. He's the murderer for this case, and if he's dead, then we can just blame it on him. Yeah, and that's easy.
But I mean, it is in a way, it's almost too much of a coincidence. They couldn't have planned this, right? It was just a lucky coincidence because they didn't know Reacher was going to come to their little town.
Well, assuming the murder, well, maybe it was. I don't know whether that was planned either.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we've got like 3 minutes left of the recording. But it seems like there's lots of mysteries open. I think we can just end this recording for now.
Can I have one real quick false fact in there?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in prison, right? Jack Reacher starts to think, and he like reminisces about this guy who got sent to prison, and he got raped by about 50 guys.
Yeah, with a pint of semen. Yeah.
Yes, pint of semen. I just looked it up. This is the tab I have.
Is that
open.
too much or what?
Yes, that's too much. So where's my
is that an amount you don't approve of?
My browser history from work is going down once again. Average milliliters of ejaculatory fluid. Median semen volume is 3.7 milliliters. And like a pint is like almost 500 milliliters. So that's way too much. It's like more like 150 milliliters would be 50 guys, or like 200.
Oh, they didn't say they only went once, right?
Yeah, but it decreases significantly.
I mean, to be fair, Koen, I feel like the pint might have been an exaggeration because it's funny and not a literal description. Because, here's the thing. I don't know about you, but usually I don't think about semen in pint glasses. But if you say a pint, you really think of a pint of beer.
It is a lot. Yes. It is a lot. Yeah, yeah.
An excessive
I think
amount.
You're right. But I just, I got curious if 50 guys really would produce that much, and I think that's slight exaggeration.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you should look more into that. But anyway, you're right. This is a great way to end this episode. So with
Good.
that thought, we're going to read
you next
week.
Sorry,
the next one is going to be until. Again, 7 chapters, so until chapter 15, so page 218 on the bound and paperback version.
Got it.
Yep. By the way, today I wrote down a 2-sentence introduction, which I'm very proud of.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So here it goes. This is part 2 of our discussion of Lee Child's first novel, Killing Floor, which not only introduced Jack Reacher, but also made Koen Google average male ejaculate on his work computer.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true. Yeah. And I even talked about it proudly during lunch.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, if you don't know what this is referring to, maybe listen to part 1 or don't. Just be amazed. Yeah, exactly. Just, I mean, this is what you can expect from Koen. And I was going to ask, have you Googled anything similar this week? You don't have to say what it is, but is there any major revelations?
No fact-checking. No fact-checking this week, no. Some complaints, but no fact-checking.
Okay, that's fine. Complaints. Okay, that's a big one. Anyway, I think, like, as always, basically, we can start with a brief summary.
Yep.
So...
I mean, you'll do the summary and I'll do like sound effects.
Yeah, of like people dying and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, chapter 8. Hubble tells Reacher that the Hubble tells Reacher that the dead guy was a private investigator that Hubble hired. Hubble plays some small but important role in a very large deal. Hubble and Reacher are released on Sunday. Reacher is picked up by Roscoe, who confirms Reacher's alibi. By the way, maybe I should have added they were still in the holding cell then. Yeah. Or in prison. Yeah, exactly. So chapter 9, Reacher explores Margrave, which is small and oddly well put together and almost too nice and affluent. Reacher sees Mrs. I don't know how to pronounce this. Kleiner? I think it's Kleiner.
I think Kleiner.
Yeah, Mrs. Kleiner, whose husband's foundation made the town rich. She seemed terrified of her stepson, basically.
Yeah, who's waiting in the car.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He's waiting in the car. A second victim is found, probably murdered at the same time and place, but somehow kind of hidden. He wasn't immediately found, but he was kind of at the same place. The first victim is identified as Reacher's brother. Chapter 10. Reacher expresses his mourning by having sex with Roscoe. He decides to do something about his brother's murder. The Kleiner son stares at Reacher in a diner. Hubble seems to be dead. Chapter 11. Reacher realizes that it was Hubble who was supposed to have been killed in prison, rather than him. Police Chief Morrison and Morrison's wife are brutally murdered. Chapter 12. Reacher trusts Finlay to not be corrupt. They visit Morrison's house and Reacher steals Morrison's switchblade.
Yes.
I only mentioned that one because there's this, I don't know what it's from. I think it's in theater from Chekhov, I think. I think he was the guy or something who said, like, if in Act 1 there's a gun, it will be used in Part 3.
Ah, really?
So that's why I wrote that down.
I mean, he's definitely going to use the switchblade, right?
Yeah, but it seemed very specific that he stole it.
Exactly.
Anyway, Chapter 13. Reacher tells Finlay everything he knows about the case, including that whoever is the next police chief is in on the whole criminal activity. The Kleiner kid tells Reacher that Roscoe is his. Reacher disagrees. Chapter 14. Mayor Teal is the new police chief. He tells Reacher to leave town. Reacher disagrees. Finlay gets an old FBI friend to bring Hubble's wife and children into safety. That's the summary.
That's the summary, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should have mentioned at the beginning, we're doing chapters 8 to 14.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot happened.
A lot happened, yeah. I mean, I think the first chapter we read was already like, the dead guy is his brother, right? The first guy who got killed. Or the second chapter.
That was chapter 9. Yeah, that's chapter 9.
Yeah, the second one we read, yeah. And it's like, ooh, that's a big one.
Exactly. And then you had, I guess we had the introduction of new characters, the Kleiners.
The Kleiners, yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Police Chief Morrison being, I guess it was kind of obvious from the beginning that he was one of the bad guys, but yeah, that happened. Then
with a cliffhanger. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah. That one also really confused me for a while because it took me like a few pages on the next chapter to realize, like, was Hubble also murdered or not? Like, I didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't super clear to me. I guess the whole point is that at least Reacher believes that he is dead.
Yeah, he's missing, right? Hubble is gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? His wife says that she must feel it if he's dead. And that's Reacher thinks, he's dead.
Yeah.
But it's still an open question because I guess as long as
no body, no crime yet. Yeah.
Although actually, it's funny, no body, no crime. There's, so, I said, as I've mentioned to you, like, I sometimes listen to the Zeitverbrechen podcast, which is, Zeit is like, a big weekly newspaper in Germany. Anyway, that Zeitverbrechen is like about crimes and that kind of stuff. And I was once really surprised that you can be convicted for life without there actually being a victim.
Really?
Like, they had a case where someone was missing.
Yeah.
They didn't know where the person was.
Yeah.
And someone went to prison for life for it.
Really?
Yeah. I thought...
legally. Like, not like... Huh.
No, it's...
So Dexter lied to me?
I don't know Dexter. And also, I mean, of course, this is different countries, right? Different law systems, but... I
always thought, like, but how can you prove something...
I'm completely with you on this one. I also thought, like, how can you convict someone of a crime if there's no... If there's
unless you confess or like, but even then, you could be mentally ill, right?
I don't know. It was just a case where, I mean, it's kind of thing, right, where it seemed fairly obvious that the guy did something to his wife or whatever. I can't remember what it was.
Sure, yeah.
And they basically believed that I think he killed her and then like dug her up, or like not dug her up, but like buried her somewhere in the woods. And they just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Yeah. And I'm still not sure I like that fact.
Yeah, I wonder.
anyway.
I mean, I guess the evidence must be like really, really there or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't super convinced, but yeah, I can't remember enough details now.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, the point is,
he's gone. His wife
Hubble's
thinks
gone.
he's not dead. Richard thinks he is.
Yes, Richard definitely thinks he's dead.
Yeah. I guess one other cliffhanger is that did Miss Morrison eat her husband's balls?
So that's what we're all waiting for. I mean, the autopsy is going to come in at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like the answer will be yes.
Yeah.
They seem that whoever is behind these threats so far seem to follow through on them pretty well.
Yeah. They
so
seem
you would imagine that, that probably happened.
Yeah.
But you have to wait until at least the next part to find out.
Can't wait. I'm happy we're doing an extra.
Pretty much the only thing you care about.
I'm happy doing an extra session today so we can I can get there quicker. Okay, so we have the Kleiners were introduced. I guess the barber. I mean, we know a little bit more about Margrave, right? There's this. He went to this general store kind of thing, right? He had a coffee there, Reacher.
Yeah.
And then he went to the barber, and he asked about the Kleiners, right? This rich family.
Did he ask about them or just about the town? And then those names came up. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think he asked specifically for them, and then the barbers were like, "We'll talk to you about anything, but not." them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I can't remember the details.
Okay.
But anyway, there seems to be, I don't know. I mean, I guess the stepson at the end had the attitude of, I'm rich, I run things.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to come to some sort of further conflict with Reacher.
I mean, I think he's setting them up now for us to think the Kleiners are the bad guys, right? The ringleaders, basically.
Yeah.
Ish. But right, because his wife, the wife is kind of sickly.
It's too obvious, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but and then the stepson is a bit of a dick. He wants Roscoe, I think. He wants.
He said it, right? That was. He was
sure.
He's been waiting for 5 years. I don't exactly know what that's supposed. How old is he again?
Simp. I don't know how old he is.
Because I thought he was fairly young. I don't know. Maybe he was 14. I was like,
who, the stepson? You mean?
Yeah. Well, I thought he's 18 or something, or 19. But maybe I got the age wrong. So I was curious, if he's been waiting for 5 years, then he must have been.
Well, a man can dream.
And good perseverance. If that's what you want to call it. It doesn't seem like he's ever talked to her, as far as I can tell. But
no, yeah, exactly.
From a distance, he's made a decision.
Yeah. I think that's called stalking. No, I guess it's not.
I don't know. Maybe he's just. I guess if you're in a small town like that, even without stalking, you're going to see most people fairly regularly, especially if they have a public job. So I could imagine even without stalking, he could have seen her quite a lot.
That's true.
Just because
there's nothing
12 people in that town.
Yeah.
Actually, but talking of Roscoe, so one question I had, which they kind of answered in here, but I'm still kind of questioning it, is do you think Roscoe is being sincere about, or not sincere, but do you think maybe she's in on it?
Oh. And you think she's
Because, at first I thought, okay, the whole romance stuff was kind of a bit clumsily written. In the beginning, she immediately liked him, she winked at him and all this kind of stuff, and it just seemed a bit too much. And at first I thought, okay, it's his first book, he's learning how to write. But now there was just one point where I started wondering, maybe not. Maybe this is well written. Because there have been a few things here where I thought something wasn't particularly well written, and then it kind of came back a few chapters later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd probably guess 60, 65% that she's it's
good or whatever.
Yeah, what we read is exactly what happens.
Yeah,
and what she wants and all that kind of stuff. But there's still a solid part of me that's thinking, but it all went a bit too fast and a bit too easy. She picked him up immediately.
Well, he's 6'5", right?
But just because someone's tall, that doesn't mean you fall in love with them.
Oh, okay. Tinder lied to me.
Yeah.
So I never thought about this. I have to admit, I fell for it like a sucker. Why would she get him out of jail, right? Why not give him another chance to kill him in jail? Or like
of course, and that's Reacher's argument, right? He says that's what he tells Finley, right? He says like it's Roscoe, you and me, because Roscoe's not in it because she picked me up, which is the exact opposite of what they want.
That's true. She might be setting up for like a big one. Yeah, that's true.
Again, yeah, that's the thing. Like, also, why would she pick him up? Because the police messed up?
Yeah,
I mean, of course you could say because she likes him.
Yeah, that could be.
But like,
yeah.
But also, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe as I said, it seemed
there has to be almost one of them. Okay, so what we've got now, right? Basically, we've got these Hubble set in jail. I think that was in this part that we're talking about. There's basically 10 people who know of this, of something bad going on, right? Was that this?
Yeah, I think it was either chapter 8 or probably 7. Yeah, can't remember, but yeah.
So there's 10 people. We've got a couple of them like dead or missing. Like Hubble is one of them. Morrison, like the
Hubble wasn't one of them.
Sorry?
Hubble wasn't. I mean, he was in on it, but he said he was not one of the 10. Him
okay.
And the guy he hired were not part of them. So there's basically that's what he says towards. I can remember this because I read this half an hour ago. No, because he explicitly tells Finley that there's 10 people in on it, not including those two. And Morrison's dead, and then Finley says, "Great, now I've got 9 more people left."
Okay. I thought Hubble was okay. And then they think this mayor who's going to take over.
Teal.
He's one. Teal. He should
that
be in
seems
on
pretty
it.
obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but then I thought we could already like number it down a lot more, but we can't actually.
I mean, but the thing is, right? If that's so, I mean, the Kleiners have something to do with it, right? So there's at least one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not that they're head of something, but I mean, they financed everything, and yeah. They definitely
they're super rich and they're trying to keep the city clean, right? So there's something they must be hiding something.
Yeah, and they hired the police department.
Yeah.
So, but that's still, let's say, it's at least one of them. So we've got with those 3, we've got Morrison, Teal, at least one of the Kleiners. So that still leaves 7 people. We haven't had that many characters in the book yet. So
exactly, yeah, that's true. Because all the policemen were clean, kind of, right? That's the idea now. Because none of them has become police chief, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, but that doesn't, just because the others, only one person can become police chief, right?
Yeah, true.
So
but the fact that they chose an outsider, which is the mayor and not one of the policemen, I think it was like Jack Reacher reasoning.
Yeah.
But, and sorry to
maybe.
interrupt. The prison director,
Spivey, yeah.
He must be in it as well.
Of course he was in on it.
So that's 4.
So we've got 4. So we've still got 6 left.
6 left.
So there's a solid chance.
Roscoe, yeah, she's dead to me now.
Maybe.
I don't know, milk it. I would say to Reacher, milk it for as long as you can and kill her.
But only once you know she's in on it. Don't just kill people.
Don't do it just because you can. Yeah.
This is also, I mean, this podcast also features lots of life lessons. This is one of the life lessons. Don't kill people just in case.
Yeah. I would
have
suggest
some
you don't.
First.
Yeah. And like, if you do it, just hiding the body is not enough in Germany. So.
Yes, exactly. You need to get someone else to stand in for your crime, basically. You have to frame someone else.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So moving on from that life lesson.
Yes.
Let's go to the next life lesson, which is.
It sounds like you have one or not. Or are you?
No, I don't. I'm thinking very hard, trying to.
Okay. You're trying to improvise a life lesson.
And yeah.
Okay, everyone. This is Koen's improvisational skill. We're witnessing it right now. It's exciting.
Yeah. You have to start cutting here, Ben.
I see the facial expression is somewhere between mild terror and amusement at your own failure.
Yeah. No, yeah. Okay. I would. Yeah, I think improv is harder than you think it is. It's like it always seems so easy, but then you're standing there, the lights are on, you fail.
You're asked to provide life lessons.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of set myself up for this, right?
Yeah, I didn't even ask you specifically. Yeah.
No.
Anyway.
Just fucked up.
But yeah, so that was like one of the questions I had is Roscoe in on this?
Good one.
And yeah, I mean, I don't have anything other than it seemed a bit fast, everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like there's anything. You know, I mean, if she is on it, then she's playing the part well. If
Sure.
then we have to give that to her. She's even doing lots of paperwork for. Well, I guess she maybe doesn't have to do the paperwork for Teal if he knows that she doesn't have to do. You know.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, okay. Actually, there's one thing I remember from this which I found interesting, which is it was kind of slightly weirdly written, but I quite liked how Reacher realized that he was not the guy who was supposed to get killed in prison.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I found that at first really confusing how he's talking about the waitresses, right? And it's like,
yeah.
one was this, one was that. And I thought, like, okay, come on. Like, do you have to describe them that much? Like, this is really weird. And then one had glasses is like a distinct feature. Like, it's not, it's unambiguous, right? And then I was like, okay, well, what's he going on about? Like, what is like, and then, you know, the big revelation that the guy had got his glasses broken by the other gang in prison. And then Reacher wore the sunglasses that were the kind that only are sunglasses when light
hits them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
You're right. That was really cool. And I have to admit, like 2 sentences before the reveal, I was like, oh my God, he was wearing this, you know, I had like this little, that was very well written. I really liked that. Yeah. And then he realized, like, because that's a fun thing, right? Because that's how he builds it up with the waitresses. Because like Reacher is like, you know, this massive ripped guy and Hubble, you know, isn't. So he could have said like, it's a tiny guy. Yeah, it's the huge guy.
No, the tiny guy. Yeah, right.
Yeah, attack the tiny guy, and they don't. It's like, it's the guy with glasses. Yeah, so that's really, that was really well done. Yeah, exactly. I have to admit. Yeah, you're right.
That was, you know, so far I've been not exactly critical of the writing, but, you know, it's, you know, as I said, like, it's the first novel and the first thing he wrote, so kind of should be expected, but that was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason he got picked up, right? I mean, it's not that he had some talent or so he practiced before, I assume, right? I mean, I don't think it's like a diamond in the rough completely.
As far as I can tell, he hadn't written anything before this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, like he was... So I can do a bit more on this because, as I mentioned last time, I'm reading this other book and I have a few highlights I wrote down about that we can maybe do in 20 minutes or so. But if I remember correctly, you know, he was in his... probably roughly the same age as Reacher, like mid to late 30s or something. Yeah. And so the author Lee Child, he just got fired from television. So he had been working in television for quite a while. So, I mean, I don't know whether he'd just been doing production and had like nothing to do with any creative work, but I could imagine just if your job is in something,
there's always a narrative,
more time thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Then again, that's maybe like saying, you know, a secretary in science would pick up science on the way. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what his. I mean, he wasn't a writer for television. That wasn't his job. I think
exactly.
He was on the production side. But yeah, no, I think this is I think the first thing that he wrote.
Yeah, well, he seems to do well.
I mean, he's doing very well for himself. Yeah. Actually, shall we just talk about it now? Then.
Just do it. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess we can.
I mean, so there's a few things. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work. So I bought have the other book on my Kindle so I can highlight stuff. And in theory, I can look through my notes now. Like through all the highlights. And yeah, maybe actually, okay. So the book is by Andy Martin and it's called Reacher Said Nothing. Like, I think that's the most common sentence in the Reacher novels because Reacher doesn't really talk much. That's kind of what I said last time. He's kind of quite talkative in this one.
Yeah, sure.
It's a lot more kind of detective work going on in this one and talking to other people. Whereas the others, he's usually quite silent. That's what the book's called, Reacher Said Nothing. Anyway, so here's a few sentences from Reacher Said Nothing about how Lee Child wrote the first book. Quote, he wrote the first chapter, Killing Floor, Chapter 1, then showed it to his wife. Everything depended on what she said. He could keep on with Chapter 2, or he could go and apply for the warehouseman job. She read what he had written and then put it down. Wait, where the fuck's the rest of the quote? Wait, where's the rest of the quote? Okay, sorry. This
Amateur. Like, you only highlighted a part?
Yeah, I highlighted like...
What does his wife say?
Now I've completely lost. Like, I don't know. I've never highlighted stuff in a Kindle. I can highlight stuff in my highlights. That's useful.
Oh, that's very, very helpful.
Okay, I seem to have lost the rest of that quote. Anyway, so the idea is why I wanted to read that is because there was this like job working in a warehouse that he considered applying for, and then he thought, "Oh fuck it, I'll just try and write this thing." So he wrote the first chapter. By the way, he wrote apparently the entire first book with pen and pencil. So the entire thing cost like €2 or whatever in terms of production costs for the first draft. But yeah, so he wrote the first chapter, then showed it to his wife, and she said, "Yeah, this might continue.
Might work."
Yeah, this
that's
might work.
Cool. That's very cool.
And then he just, I guess, continued doing it. And there's also, I don't know whether I highlighted this, but there is also something about like how the first stuff kind of got picked up. And I think it was something like one of the first readers who randomly read it, because this wasn't a big announcement. Here's this big writer or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it started off pretty inconspicuously, and I think basically one of the first readers said, "This is the new thing. Like this is going to be a huge series."
Oh
and
wow!
She said something like, "What'd she say?" She said, "Buy 3 copies of this book. The first for yourself, the second to give to someone else, and the third to keep as a first edition."
Oh damn! Okay.
Yeah. So like
she knew what she was talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. So for some reason, this person, I can't remember who she was.
Yeah.
I don't even know whether she had any literary influence or whether she was literally just a random reader. But yeah, that was.
She knew something was up, but yeah,
exactly.
That's really interesting. I guess it also has to depend a bit on the zeitgeist or whatever, right? Maybe like in the late 90s, like stuff like this was kind of new. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this was mid 90s, I believe.
Was it okay, I thought it was 99.
Something like that.
97.
Oh, okay.
98. First published in Great Britain in 1998.
Oh, okay. So there's a few things that, just a few notes I have that relate to some of the stuff we talked about last time and that I can answer a bit better.
Yeah.
One thing is we asked about how old Reacher is in all the other books and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so the quote here goes, "A lot of people were wondering about Reacher getting older. I'd heard the question asked a few times, how old is he now? Is he over the hill or what? Lee reckoned he was around 48 now, maybe a bit older. I used to be very specific, but now I just don't mention it." So this was written in 4 years ago or something. So it seems like he actually did kind of age through the books, and we're getting the guy who's 36.
Yeah, fresh out of the military, talks a lot.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting.
Then another is about, we mentioned the whole films and Tom Cruise thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that slightly more precise. So here's again a quote from Reacher Said Nothing by Andy Martin. "I have taken a vow to keep off the subject of Tom Cruise, who played Reacher in the Jack Reacher movie based on One Shot. He has already received around 1 million emails from fans saying, 'You sold us out, you bastard,' or words to that effect. He sends out a tweet about what he had for breakfast, and they'll all tweet back to him, 'But why Tom Cruise?' Some people said, 'What about Daniel Craig?' 'Well, what about Daniel Craig?' I said. 'He's even shorter,' Lee shot back. He had actually met Daniel Craig and knew him well enough to call him Danny. Likewise, Clint Eastwood. They're all shrimps." So apparently all the tough guys in films are very, very short, so none of them would be a better Reacher than Tom Cruise. At least that's
how it is.
Lee Child's opinion. I like the word shrimp. I've never heard anyone call anyone else shrimp.
No. Okay, so that's settled then. Tom Cruise is the best pick.
Exactly. Actually, okay, here's something interesting. We talked about TV and his writing and whether that influenced him. So I still don't know exactly what he did in TV, but here this mentions about his writing style. "Do you have any kind of strategy for writing or rules or whatever? I only really have one. You should write the fast stuff slow and the slow stuff fast. I picked that up from TV. Think about how they shoot breaking waves. It's always in slow motion. Same thing. You could spend pages on pulling the trigger. Die trying all the mechanics and chemistry of firing a shot, like calculus, and what happens to the bullet afterwards. That's the thing most writers forget. They think it's just pull the trigger." So he did mention that he learned something from TV.
Yeah, I guess so. I see. That's what I think. Like, there's always a narrative in TV, and even if you're not on the creative side, you still have to like cut it like that or whatever, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's still creative, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have no idea. But the thing, as I meant, like he could also, I don't know what his job was, but he could also have been just a guy sorting out the finances or whatever, right? Or
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, you don't know what's in there, right? I mean, one thing I have to say about his writing style is what really surprised me, but not in a bad way. It's just like because I'm trying to like read this book a bit more detailed, is how short his sentences are. Like it's almost
that gets
always
shorter
like
in the future. Yeah.
Really? Even shorter? Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. He does a lot of this starting a sentence with which. It says something like, I don't know, Reacher couldn't eat anything, full stop, which is fine by him, full stop. That kind of here's another. Okay, so cool. You know these books, right? They're like 500 pages long.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere it said they're often like 100,000 words or something.
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to guess how he writes his books now? He doesn't do it with pen and pencil anymore.
He doesn't know
pencil
words.
and paper.
Yeah.
He does it. He types it out on his computer. And do you know how?
I don't know. No, I mean like he's counting the words or whatever, or like
No. So this is a very open question. Though. Here's a quote. Lee types with 2 fingers only, the index fingers. Yeah, exactly. So that's how you write 100,000 word book in like 4 months. Apparently, you type it out
in
with
4
2
months.
fingers.
Jesus Christ.
Something like that. And then, I mean, one of the reasons why his books are so successful is because, I think he does a lot of promo around it. And so, he does a new book every year.
Yeah.
He does some promo around it. There's also always a bit of time for, for the book to actually be made, like typeset and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get it done in quite a lot less than a year.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I guess, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I guess that's how Jack Reacher would type if he would type, right? I guess not even with 2 fingers. He would be like searching, like back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing with Reacher also, right? He doesn't have a mobile phone or anything. There's in the book that the other book I mentioned last time, the past tense or whatever, he has to use a computer.
Yeah.
He's not very good at it. he can just about kind of
like make do.
Yeah, he can just about get through it. Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff how he basically he does fairly little revisions on his book, and he actually works through it from beginning to end. So like the thing they start with is that he doesn't know what's going to happen. So
really? Okay.
Yeah, he actually has no idea. So in this one, it's like a kind of self-exploration almost, where so they talk here about how they're writing. I can't remember which novel they're writing, but they're writing one of the Reacher novels, and Andy Martin is kind of watching him do it more or less the entire time.
Sure.
So he's sitting there in the same room with him, and they talk about how on day 1 or whatever he barely wrote anything, and then but he kind of wrote like the beginning of that thing is something like there's this huge guy who's killed in a field or something somewhere. They're all kind of very similar, right? It's somewhere Midwest or something, rural areas of the US. Someone gets killed or whatever. So he starts off that way, and then kind of they talk about like how Lee Child himself goes like, who is that guy? Like, who's the guy who just got killed here?
Yeah,
like
that's cool.
Why in this field? That kind of stuff. And then I think the end of the chapter is something like Reacher just gets out of a train somewhere. And very similar to this one. He kind of just gets out of the train close by. And he's like,
sure.
Okay, who's this other guy? And then he goes like, okay, so Kiva sounds a bit like Reacher. So Kiva's the name of the big guy who was just killed. And he thought, okay. And then like in this case, the Andy Martin, the author of the other book, it's like, yeah, it really sounds very similar. And, Kiva's also a really big guy.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe they get confused or something. And then they kind of build it up that way. He doesn't like plot it out. He says, he kind of starts with nothing or just a scene and goes, I wonder what happens next.
Oh, that's very fun. Yeah. So it's like, I wonder if he then ties it back in, like stuff like with the glasses in prison, right? If he then goes back, it's like, oh yeah, give him glasses. I assume he must do that.
Yeah, sometimes probably. And I don't know whether his writing style's changed slightly over time.
Probably. I mean, you develop, right?
No, he does rewrite stuff. So for example, he did change some words because he's actually, he's very, you can often think, okay, these are like, it's Pulp Fiction. It's just you write it quickly, you read it quickly, you don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
But he does, at least, even though he doesn't rewrite, it seems like later on, he doesn't like go back much and then change something.
Yeah.
And, like version 2, 3, 4, 5 of a book.
Sure.
He did, I think like on day one, he wrote like parts of the first chapter or 2 paragraphs or a page or whatever. And then on day 2, he kind of changed around a few words on a very like linguistic level, like what kind of the words mean, that kind of stuff. So he is, he's aiming for very basic, very straightforward language.
Yeah.
But it seems to be very aware of implications, subtle implications of words and that kind of stuff. So it's
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's as with everything in life.
It's a beautiful life lesson.
No, what I meant was like, as with everything in life, it's the stuff that seems easy is usually a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I expect. Yeah.
Here's we talked about how Reach is doing well. Here's a paragraph about that. Later that day, I'm with Lee in the back of a limousine riding to another TV studio downtown, chauffeur-driven, all very suave. The sales figures were just coming in from the UK, first week of publication. Personal was the name of the previous book that he was just selling while he was writing his next book. Personal was number 1, of course. But the really interesting thing I noticed, poring over the stats, was that it was outselling the next 13 combined. Wow, it's a massacre, I exclaimed. The opposition has been comprehensively annihilated. See, these Reacher books really sell a lot.
They really sell, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, but that's it, right? I mean, and I mean this in like the best way. It's like, it is just good entertainment, right?
Yeah.
It's like watching an action movie. It's like, you're in there, you're nice. Reading still feels a lot more, and I think it is, quote unquote, better than watching a movie, right? You're at least like doing something still, like not passively observing. No, yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I don't know why I disliked the first one you gave me, kind of. What was that? Selling point?
Past
Something
tense.
Like that. Past tense.
Yeah.
I don't know where selling point comes from. Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. I feel like, I get to the chapters really fast. So yeah, it works. He's got a golden formula.
Actually, one thing I find really interesting is that here's another piece that doesn't really relate to anything we said, but I find it kind of interesting, which is another piece of research had been carried out in the UK. Apparently, Lee Child was the author most readers wanted to get to know. So he seems, I don't know, I mean, it is of course interesting, right? The guy who writes Reacher.
Yeah. What's wrong with him?
Yeah. So I found a quote here about the writing of the first book.
Yeah.
Some guy, they were talking about a guy called Joe before. I can't remember who he was, but Joe loved the fact that Lee had written Killing Floor in pencil. It was so not prima donna, not even a typewriter. September 1, 1994, 3 pads of A4, the kind with lines, 1 pencil sharpener, and an eraser. That was what he had bought at the Arndale Centre. It cost £3.99, he remembered precisely. He wrote the whole of the first draft in pencil, the second in pen, and the third on someone else's laptop. Wait, that's different than I remember. Okay. It took a day and a half for the printer to print it all out. Oh, sorry, first draft. Yeah, sorry, not first chapter, first draft in pencil. Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. You know what I think he does really well? What I think would be the hardest about writing is like naming people.
So just very briefly, those were the quotes I had from the other book.
Those were the quotes, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I
I
started too soon. Like, don't you think like naming people is the hardest thing? And he just does it.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I know of some writers. So I know Jean Simenon, who's that's a whole nother story. He's a crazy writer, but he wrote lots and lots and very fast. And he apparently, I think he just he had a phone book next to him and just looked through names and just took those.
Yeah, okay, makes complete sense. He probably does the same.
Oh, actually, there is a funny thing about a name. So I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but there was one passage in the other book how some fan of him on like some, I don't know, they were doing some interview live show on radio or whatever, and how this one guy said, "Oh, my mum's you're like the biggest fan of yours or whatever," and it's like, "Oh, what's the name?" And then I can't remember what the name was, but then that name became a character in one of the next books. And apparently there's lots of people who like write to him saying like, "Hey, can you make me the bad guy or one of the victims?" Like one of the guys who Reacher completely annihilates. One of the like bad bosses or whatever.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, just imagine you're reading a Lee Child book. You know, it's a book set, I don't know, in the Netherlands or something, and then suddenly this guy Koen Frolichs comes, and Reacher just completely smacks him.
Kicks the shit out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then you're like, the guy like in the end like even cries a little bit. He really like writes it in there. Yeah.
I mean, that would be pretty cool, though, right?
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah. I would like to get killed off by Reacher.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you'll find similar guys you can try it out with if you want to get killed
I
by
think
someone like that. And I think there are more people like that than we realize usually.
Well, I wonder about this, right? Like, it's this like also, see, I wanted to look this up and I forgot. I want to look up like how cool is military police actually, right?
Okay.
Or like, are there like a bunch of like nerdy military police guys like going like, yeah, Reacher, like, yeah, I'm like Reacher, but in reality, they're just like typing behind their laptop, kind of getting a belly. I'm not saying I think this about military police in case anyone,
from the military
in case they are like Reacher and like they come from me now.
If you just email me, I'll send you Koen's address.
Yeah. They don't need you.
Actually,
they can track me down.
Yeah, by Googling your name and seeing the address of our office.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty easy to find. Yeah,
it's pretty easy to find me. I won't put up resistance if you do it fast. Like if you do it fast, just break my neck. I won't put up resistance. I don't want to suffer. That's all.
Just let me film it.
Yeah, it's like getting. Oh yeah, I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about animals. I almost went there.
Okay, then we don't have to censor yourself, but that's fine. I think. I think we've slightly gone off track anyway.
Track a bit.
Yeah. Well, then again, the weird thing is, like, I feel like with this kind of book, there isn't that much. I realized, like, as I said before, we did Crime Punishment. There was always a lot of stuff to talk about the book itself because there was kind of intentionally uncertain things about the book. Why one person did this, who this person is. But here it seems like we've kind of talked about most of that already, right? Like they are kind of the main characters.
Oh, one character we missed, Hubble's wife, Charlie.
Yeah.
And his kids. She seems also a little too cool about this.
You reckon?
Whole situation.
You mean, yeah.
Because she even went to him, like the first time Roscoe and him went to his house, right? Or the house of the Hubbles. She was kind of like, in a bad mood and everything, or like, not bad, but like sad and a little upset. And then he came back like a couple of days later or the next day, I don't know exactly. And then she's like, yeah, I'm sorry for my outburst. I should have like composed myself, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, your husband's missing. There's random policemen showing up at your door.
Yeah, but that seemed normal to me. That's kind of natural. But when you just said that, she did say she thought her husband was still alive. Maybe she actually knows he's still alive.
Maybe she hid him. Yeah. Like hid with a D.
Hid with a D, yeah. Well, I mean, maybe both. If she's involved, then maybe for whatever reason, she just knows that they aren't. So I meant it like in terms of she's in, if she's one of the criminals. Maybe she just knows that they're not going to kill him, but, just keep him away. Like, as Reacher said, like he should be kind of, I guess that theory went through the roof, but through the window, but he should be kind of safe because he has a job to do. That's kind of difficult to replace. So it would make, but then again, I guess that Reacher thinks they tried to kill him. So if it wasn't for the misunderstanding in prison, so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reaction that you just said, that seemed kind of normal to me, right? You're kind of upset and then it seems she's also someone who wants to, maintain appearance and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know.
You just want to say, like,
I mean, I would expect you to just be a bit more upset about the whole situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, but you're right. I mean, there is not like the stuff. Basically, your summary is that I'm not sure if there's more we can. We need a bit more characters. Hopefully, next time we'll get the rest of the characters. Kind of.
I think the interesting thing is more that, like, in terms of discussing this, is just that most of the stuff that's in there is fairly clear, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Like, we know who Reacher is and his alibi checked out and everything. I guess, as I said, we still have the question about. Well, I guess we're trusting Finlay for now. Then again, he has kind of a bit of weird background.
True. And now
he's financial problems. Yeah, I didn't think of that. With his divorce and everything, maybe a little money on the side would be helpful.
And now he gave Hubble's wife, Charlie, and the kids are taken by a friend of Finlay.
A guy who makes Reacher look small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I don't think either we're paranoid, or we have trust issues, or something's going to happen here. So one of the three good characters is going to turn out to be actually a bad guy.
Jeez, I think we're not done with the deaths yet. I think there's going to be more people killed.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be more deaths.
That Switchblade has to find somebody's neck. Yeah.
Or maybe that's the surprise. He's not going to use a Switchblade to kill someone, but to cut something open or something, like to cut a rope or something.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's the kind of like we expect him to kill someone with it, but it's going to be used, obviously, but maybe in a different context.
Maybe it's like, making a sandwich one day and he needs
Or there's just a balloon and he pops it.
Yeah. To make a kid cry, to cause a diversion. So he can kill people with his hands.
Exactly. Because that's way more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to feel the struggle. I don't know. I think... Yeah, I wonder actually at the next section if it's going to be similar to this in case, in the sense that stuff happens, but you only know the cliffhanger in the end when he tells you, basically, right? It turns out it was a llama escaped from the zoo and he trampled his brother. Kind of coincidence.
I couldn't actually read the next chapter. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn. See,
a lot of llamas in the rest of the book.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, no,
I mean, be a writer. That's what I realize right now.
I mean, you just need to write, then you're a writer, right? So
yeah, that's true.
You literally could be a writer. You'll
be
have
shit.
to write.
You'll be shit at it, but you're a writer. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about writing. You can actually be it if you want to.
That is true.
As long as you don't, want to be a good writer or a successful writer or a popular writer.
Hey, none of those things matter.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. So what's going to happen next? Let me just see. So we read until page 218. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter exactly which page we read to guess what's going to happen next, but let's say 310 or 322.
That's to 22.
Okay, so we're going to read chapter 15 to 21. So what's going to happen next? I guess what are the few questions? Okay, maybe first question. Do you think, also just for structural reasons, next time we would have read beyond the midway point of the book. That's often when major turns happen, right? Do you think it's going to be revealed that one of that Finlay or Roscoe is not who we think they are? Sorry, let's be more specific. Are one of the bad guys and are tricking Reacher?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't think either in the next one, yeah.
Yeah. You don't think, do you think any of those two is going to turn out bad?
Well, I think your kind of point earlier about there being 10 people and we only counted to 4 so far. Kind of has to be one of them, right? So I'd say yes.
Okay, then I'm going to say no.
But I'm not going to say they're going to be revealed next time.
No. But just in the end, towards yeah.
Ultimately,
the whole story. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you're going to say no just to be controversial, or?
Well, also because I think it's too much of a coincidence, right? They couldn't have, why was Roscoe so nice to him in the beginning? They didn't know all this stuff was going to happen yet.
But Morrison already suspected it. Actually, it's not really clear whether Morrison suspected him actually as the murderer or whether he just confused him with his brother.
Yeah, or even just used him. Yeah, true.
Exactly,
true.
but
yeah, that could be.
Okay, so here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Morrison was there and Roscoe were there when Reacher came in. So maybe Morrison could have told Roscoe what to do.
That is true. Yeah.
So it's still possible.
That's still possible, yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess so let's put it this way. She right now doesn't have a motive.
Roscoe, yeah.
Yeah, there's no clear, I mean, of course you can make one up, something like, Morrison was putting pressure on her or whatever. They needed one person.
Whatever, could be
You can always make something up. But Finlay actually potentially has a motive. I mean, to be fair, he said the job was well paying, so maybe he doesn't actually need the money. But then again, maybe it was well paying for specific reasons. I don't know.
That could be, yeah.
So I guess right now, so here's the thing. Yeah, I guess with Finlay, I have no suspicions, but he seems to have at least a bit of a motive.
Yeah.
With Roscoe, I can't see a motive, but Or went a bit fast. Yeah, so we'll see. Cool, that's the important thing. If someone
They didn't
likes
even-
you, be suspicious of it.
Yeah,
Don't
life
trust
lesson.
anyone who likes you. That's another life lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. If a woman approaches you and says, "Hey,
Yeah.
how are you?" Immediately be suspicious.
Kick her.
That's-
Yeah. Just Jack Reacher her headbutt. They don't.
Exactly,
They never
headbutt her
expect a
straight away.
headbutt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And then get rid of the body.
cool.
Unless you're in Germany, then you have to keep the body or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm super confused now.
Yeah, I don't know either, but
Wear the skin and pretend you're them. That's what I would do.
but then someone's going to do the same to you. So
God, fuck.
yeah. Anyway,
Okay,
so
sorry.
that's not
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So okay, we agree though that's not going to be revealed this time.
Yeah.
But maybe he's going to have suspicions. Maybe.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Do
we
you-
have.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see Hubble in the next part again? Like in the next 6 chapters? we're
I
gonna
think
read?
it's going to be revealed what's going to happen with him, like whether he's
Okay.
alive or not. I think that's going to
Okay,
be
okay.
cleared because
Okay.
he's not really what it's about anymore, right?
Well, he
It
still
started
has
off-
all the... Like, he's got a lot of information that Reacher wants out of him, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's not. He's now not the end goal, right? He's not the end goal.
Sure.
The end goal
Yeah,
is
yeah,
now. I'm actually entirely sure what the thing is. Well, I guess
Well,
for Reacher, it's to not avenge his brother's death, but to clear it.
yeah.
In whatever that means. So the Kleiner son, or whatever he's called.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're probably going to intimidate Reacher, and he's going to punch through all of them. Something like that's probably.
I
gonna
hope
happen.
so. I mean, the way the Kleiner son is written, or like the stepson, like you want him to get beat up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's a bit of a dick. You know, he kind of like, he's not nice to his stepmom. He's not nice to Roscoe, probably. You know, people don't like him. You know, that's the, like,
Exactly.
you know, yeah.
So yeah, I
Interesting.
think I don't think he's going to get beat up, but maybe not necessarily him specifically. But I feel they're going to exert some pressure, maybe him and a few friends on Reach or something.
Yeah.
I think Charlie and the kids are just going to be out of sight for the next part.
Yeah, I think
even if
so
something
too.
happens, I think they're just going to be gone for now.
True.
Yeah, well, the weird thing is, I feel like there's lots of characters, but then again, right now I'm almost struggling to name more. There's of course the Mayor Teal.
Yeah, he could, but that's all could haves, right? Like they could play a role, but it's also fine if they don't, kinda, right?
I mean, also Teal's not going to do anything.
Yeah, he's a puppet, right? It seems like he's a puppet.
He's also like, as you said, like he's too old to really like do anything, right?
True.
So he can talk to Reacher and like imply stuff and
Try to
kind of
intimidate
threaten him or
Yeah.
intimidate him. Yeah, exactly. But he's not going to actually do anything.
Yeah. Actually, there's one interesting thing because he's like this Teal guy, the mayor. He's like from a rich plantation family, however they call it,
Yeah,
right?
something like
Do you think that that's anything? Because if he's rich, why do they need the Kleiners, kind of, right? Is that related or not? Is the Kleiners like a completely separate rich family? And why are they
I
rich?
can't
Why,
remember.
what is their business? Oh, the next question I have for you, actually. What is the criminal activity that's going on? We kind of talked about this last time.
Yeah, what is the
What is the
conspiracy,
crime?
or whatever you want
Yeah,
to call
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, I have no idea.
Right?
Let's see. So what do we know? We know there's a substantial proportion of people in this small town involved. We know that the guy was a banker and maybe something,
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that narrows
something
down.
there. He hired, and he was also like, he's actually very wealthy, right? They have a Bentley and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's-
They're extremely
Assuming
wealthy,
he didn't
yeah.
like just, rent it for the day, that he actually owns it, then, yeah. Wait, what do we know? So he hired Reacher's brother, which is interesting, right? Because that's
Oh, that's another thing. Sorry. Yeah. Towards the end, I get all the good ideas. Reacher's brother said like he's been in Margrave before, right? Because he said he also looked for the dead musician.
Oh yeah, that
Did he
guy.
have something to do with it before? Did he go before already for Hubble? Like a couple of years ago?
But he helped her. Oh, like to help Hubble, you mean? Or
Yeah. Like, why did Hubble come up with like his brother? Like,
yeah, that's kind of what I was going at. Also, like why
Okay, sorry.
his brother? Yeah, no, it was the same thing. Kind of like it might be that they just met randomly because it's a small place.
could be.
And Reacher, like the brother Joe Reacher, was just looking for that musician or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of, why did they hire the brother? Also, it's not really clear. Is it clear what he hired the brother for?
Well, private investigator, right? To kind of help him out of his trouble.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess to get him...
Very vague.
I guess the idea was maybe for the brother to implicate the guys in the crime like the other 10 guys, right? And then maybe that could have been it. That maybe like Morrison, maybe the brother found out already, told Morrison, the police chief, and then got killed because he knew too much, right? That could be...
Oh, you think something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's kind of, in a way, it feels like it's kind of obvious what's going to happen next in terms of like how much actions there's going to be and that there's going to be cliffhangers and plot twists and that kind of stuff. Like the rhythm of the book seems fairly clear. Like every other chapter, there's like a big turnaround or a cliffhanger or whatever. But I'm actually pretty blank on like what's actually going to happen next. Like I don't really have any specific expectations about what's going to happen in the next 6 chapters. Yeah, here's the funny thing. We still have the code word that the wife says she doesn't know what it means. Again, you'd assume a guy like Reacher would, if she's in some way implicated, either she's a very good liar, or you'd assume that someone with Reacher's training would kind of be able to figure out when she's lying.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
like if you work in the police for 20 years, you can probably tell, I'd imagine.
But actually, when they were at Charlie's house, all of a sudden Roscoe started flirting with him. That could have clouded his vision, right? Because she rubbed his leg, and then all of a sudden he realized, like, oh my god, she wants me because she rubbed his leg.
Yeah, exactly. I find that pretty funny too.
Oh my god, now I get it.
It's not even rubbing, right? It's just the way she sat down next to him.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my god, the wink, the coffee, everything makes sense now. We're gonna go back to her house and like do it.
They did. He was right.
And they did. Yeah. I have to admit, little lackluster in the writing. Like, if you can write on how people are pinned on a wall, like, you can write a bit more of, like, and then we roll it around.
You wanted more explicit sex.
Yeah, I want more explicit sex.
I mean, you can write to Lee Child that his books aren't sufficiently pornographic for you. I'm sure he can add something to the next. Oh, yeah, he stopped writing. He can't.
He stopped. See, just some time. He knew it was coming.
Actually, there was one quote. I seem to have not highlighted it, but I remember reading it about, the Reacher books. One of it, I think it might have been about Personal, the book that appeared before, he was writing the one that I'm reading about.
Yeah.
So roundabout. Anyway, I think there was something like a female reader said something like, "What do you mean there's little sex or no sex in the Reacher books? Don't you know what's going through the mind of all the women while they're reading it?"
Oh, damn.
So apparently, Reacher, maybe Koen, that's the problem. You're not letting your fantasies about Jack Reacher go wild enough.
That's it. I'll try that next time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've got like 300 pages more to do that. Just don't think too much of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, puts me off a little bit, I guess.
Anyway, I'm glad that we again ended. I guess we're ending this thing now, and we're again reaching. I guess last time we talked about a pint full of semen, and now we're talking about you being disappointed in the sex scene. So I'm glad we're finding a rhythm here.
We're reaching another climax, huh?
Very good, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope people don't listen to this because it's getting weirder and weirder. I mean, I talk about wearing people's skin every time I end on like something.
Yeah, I also feel like I might get into legal trouble just by having you on because you're going to say something. I don't know.
I just want to say, like a disclaimer: everything expressed on this channel is Ben's, it's Ben's opinions and not his guests.
I've written a script. Koen is just reading it off.
Yes, I'm reading this.
Very well, I have to say, very convincing. It sounds like you actually came up with the ideas. I mean, you also have to credit my writing for that, right? It's not that easy to write a guy who's not a native but speaks the language very well, and really get the kind of rhythm of that going. It's not that easy.
Yeah, no, I think we found a good rhythm here. I mean, yeah, you can hear I'm stumbling now because I'm like kind of spitballing.
Exactly.
Like I've reached the end of my script. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just improvise. And as we established earlier, improvisation isn't your strong point. So
Isn't my strong point.
I guess next time I'll write a bit more for you to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe we can do some jokes on the side so I can throw those in there. I can try, be.
I'll look up like 100 best jokes or something, so you can read some of those next time.
Exactly. Just throw them in randomly. Yeah. Okay,
good. So as we said, we're going to read chapters 15 to 20, which ends on page 322.
I'm actually excited because, I mean, it works for me. I'm like, now I was a little bit annoyed that I had to stop reading. So, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, then I always feel like I should address the audience now if people are still listening. But then again, I feel sorry for people who spend their time listening to me. Why would you listen to this?
It's like lunch.
You have better things to do.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. It's like some people just use it for background noise, and then it can be kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
I guess. It must be really confusing though if you have this as background noise and occasionally you hear you just hear random phrases like a pint of semen or
yeah, exactly.
I was disappointed by the sex scene or I wear their skin. There must be some moments where it's like, this is not good background noise.
Yeah. What kind of background noise? I shouldn't let my dog listen to this when I'm gone. Exactly. So he doesn't like eat a couch.